Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. As you know, right in the midst of elections. I mean, it's really getting serious now, folks. And I hope that you will get out and vote and register to vote. Very, very, very important. Very important. I realize this is not a presidential election day, but hey, it will be very shortly. And we need to really get out and exercise our rights and whatever. Okay, now, our show today, we've got a special guest today with us right here in the Portland metropolitan area. The gentleman, we both know one another, Michael Dembrow. He is for Senate District number 23. Senate District number 23. He's been in office for about 10 years, for that matter. He's been an educator. He's been a teacher. He's been a professor. I mean, the whole nine yards. In fact, I might learn a little bit more English this time around. I'm still short.
I'll do my best.
I'm needing help. I'm needing all the help I can get. But anyway, we're gonna talk a bit about a number of things. In fact, whatever his pleasure is along that particular line. And while we are running and a number of young people have gotten out to want to run for office and whatever, we're going to take advantage of that from the standpoint of saying maybe he can give a couple of thoughts about why he ran for office and what did he go through, if you will, and maybe that 10 years he can maybe talk a little bit. He's thinking about retiring, but maybe he can just kind of give the individuals that are coming up now wanting to run for office what to be looking at, the expectations. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're gonna talk about the session, the legislative session, a little bit. Spend a little time with him about the legislative session. It's a short session, so we're gonna get a feel for that, and what went well and what didn't. We're gonna get down in that area. And what about the work group on reentry? He's doing a special committee kind of thing, but on reentry, housing and employment, and what does it hope to accomplish? And ballot measure 11. We had with 11. And that's instituted right now, and that is a major, major concern. Kevin Mannix, I guess, put that, when he was a representative, right. He put that on the table, and it was kind of like a majority, and they were sort of caught everybody sort of like off guard, and you got about 60% or so, right, that we need, if you will, in order to change anything. So that's a major concern, and so hopefully the senator will kind of give us a feel for where that is and what we can do with that. And I'm going to try to get Kevin, come on board. You gotta address the issue here, okay, buddy? All right, for sure. All right. So with that, Senator, welcome aboard.
Sure. Oh, it's a pleasure, Bruce.
Oh, hey.
Really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you for giving us the time.
You know, as you say, we're in the middle of the political season now, yes. Which is, 2 weeks ago, we were still in session. Mm-hmm. You know, during the even-numbered years, we have short sessions. They last no more than 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. Although, actually, this time we finished after 4 weeks. It was a funny thing. The session seemed so short, and we thought we're never going to be able to get through what we need to get through in just 5 weeks. And then we were at the end of the 4th week, and it was like everybody was still talking to one another. The Republicans, the Democrats, they were kind of getting along.
Okay.
And we decided, let's end it now, before things blow up, because they were at risk of blowing up.
Yes,
So we did that. And we actually got a lot done in this short session. I mean, it's amazing how much you can get done in a short period of time if you have prepared for it enough going in. And I think we did that. I will say that, if I were to characterize this session, this was the Oregon, not Washington, D.C. session.
Oh, right? That was very interesting.
A lot of what motivated the bills that we passed had to do with reacting against things that were happening in our federal government, in Congress, or the Trump administration, actually. Probably foremost of that had to do with our tax system. Our taxes, our state taxes, are in most cases connected to federal taxes. Right. So when they create a new loophole, we follow automatically. And in the last minute tax reform, the tax measures that they did, they put in a number of things sort of at the last minute in the middle of the night that gave some breaks to some special interests that if we did not disconnect from the federal program in that respect, would have cost us several $100 million. Congress can cut taxes and end up with a $1 trillion deficit and just pass it on to the future, right? Just borrow in order to meet that obligation. But here at the state level, we have a balanced budget requirement. So we can't, if we eliminate $300 million in revenue, that means we have to cut programs to $300 million. And that would have meant schools, our Medicaid program, throwing people off of social supports. And we didn't want to go there. And so we did manage to disconnect from the federal government. And in so doing, we saved the state a bunch of money. And that made the session much easier. Because if we had to cut $300 million from the budget, I can guarantee you this session would have gone on 5 weeks. Because that would have really been tough. So that was a real success. As you know, we have young people in this country who are what are called DACA students.
Yes.
They were brought here as children, and they only have known this country. They went to school here. They graduated from high schools, et cetera. And so under the Obama administration, they were given a special status, the DACA status, so that they could work permanently, at least temporarily. And as you probably know, as your viewers will know, back in September, President Trump eliminated that program. And suddenly, all of these young people are in jeopardy. He said, okay, I'm going to end the program. Congress, you fix it. And of course, Congress has not been able to fix it. So one of the things that I did back when that happened was I was involved in creating a program that has these young, what are called dreamers, who in the old days, if they wanted to go to an Oregon college or university, they had to pay as if they were foreign students, even though they grew up here, they went to high school here, et cetera. And so this gave them what's called tuition equity. And so they paid the same amount as their friends, who also went to the same high school, tuition equity. Well, one of the elements of that program is it's connected to DACA. So if DACA goes away, their access to tuition equity goes away. And we needed to take steps to protect them from that. We did that, I'm very proud to say. We also, another thing that DACA does is it allows them to drive, to have driver's licenses. If DACA goes away, they lose that ability. So we as the legislature took steps to allow them for the next couple of years at least to retain their licenses if they have one now. And hopefully by then this DACA issue will be addressed.
I was just thinking along that same line, kind of like how it all sort of originated to begin with. Because as you know, back then, there were two areas where the citizenships were pretty well blanketed given. And I think there was one under the Reagan administration and one under the Bush administration. And then rather than just saying, okay, fine, now we've done that, and let's go back to the original process, we didn't. And I think that another major reason why it's such a major issue, they're Catholics. And they're Catholics, and they're very, very strong family oriented, and we do have a law such that if they can migrate here and then have the baby, they can leave their child, and that's hard to do.
It's been a hallmark of this country since its beginning. If you're born here, you're a citizen.
You're a citizen, you see. Right. And then as we become more sophisticated, but then at the same time, the Mexicans, if you will, are very religious, if you will, as family. And then I think as time went on, everybody said, okay, fine, I'm here now. Give me my citizenship. But especially the moms, especially the mothers, and so I think that needs to really be, the story needs to be told. And I think that hopefully
Yeah.
it'll ease some of this stuff.
These
because it's
people
so
are
political.
contributing a great deal to
Yes,
this country.
yes, yes.
And, I'm actually part of a national task force on immigration and the states. It's, we have this national organization of legislators called the National Conference of State Legislatures. And they have a number of task forces. And so this is one, it's about 30 legislators from around the country, half Democrat, half Republican. And to deal with this problem of immigration, how it impacts the states. And I will say we have not visited one state where they're not having huge problems with their agriculture because they can't find workers. And we hear from agricultural interests that you have got to fix this immigration problem. You have to have it so that people have a path to come here and work here legally and not have to wait. Right now the waiting period is about 20 years.
That's all encompassing. I agree.
We need to solve that.
So anyway,
let's have
another session.
The problem is at the state level we can't fix our
You can't- yeah,
immigration problem.
right.
But we can deal with some of the effects, so that's what we do.
Please keep us
Yeah.
abreast of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially for
Another area, and I think we'll come back to this, is guns.
Yes.
There has been a lack of action at the federal level about coming up with sensible gun safety kind of policies. And so we took a further step here of dealing with, there's a kind of loophole in the law in terms of people who are accused of or have been convicted of domestic violence or have active restraining orders against them, to be able to make sure that they're not, they don't have firearms, because it's a huge danger. That's, the biggest two sources of gun violence really are suicide and domestic violence related partner on partner violence. And so, we took a step to fix that. It was contentious, as these gun bills always are.
So you're in R&D, everybody.
Very much
the
so.
table.
Very much so. But there was some bipartisanship, but not a lot.
They're right.
But at the end of the day, we were able to keep moving a little bit forward.
What impact did that have in regards to the shootings that we had in Florida? Did that have some impact on that?
We were on track to pass this legislation.
Okay.
What's ironic is that our legislation passed. It was the first state legislation that passed after that tragic shooting. And so it got some press as a result of that.
Yeah.
But to be honest, we were already on track to
Already
do
on
that.
track, okay.
And then, when that event happened in Florida, it was just one further piece of demoralizing news.
Yeah.
We have got to take if it's not going to happen in D.C., then we have to do it state by state by state.
Yes.
So,
Okay, good.
yeah, and the final area that we took action on, or are in the process of taking action, because D.C. is climate change. And, coming up with a process of putting a cap on our greenhouse gas emissions and figuring out a strategy to reduce year by year the amount of greenhouse gas pollution, carbon pollution, if you will, and in order to stop the worst effects of climate change. And move things in a positive direction, create new jobs, get healthier forests, which are storing more carbon. Anyway, we took some good steps in that direction this session. I think next year we'll conclude that work.
What impact do you feel that I call it the third house, the lobbying group? I mean, I'm sure they're at the table, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They're very much at the table.
Yeah.
What impact has it had in regards to some of the things you're trying to do?
Well, the real challenge as a legislator, and this was something I had to learn early on, and your viewers, anybody who's thinking of going into this business needs to know this, is you can't know everything, right? You are faced with such a wide variety of things, whether it's judiciary or healthcare or human services or science, technology, industry, labor. I mean, all these issues that nobody can know everything about. And so what you really have to, the best skill in being a successful legislator, I think, and actually any kind of public servant, is having critical thinking. Understanding when somebody is giving you a line and be able to see through it and to know who can I trust, who should I be listening to, and who not. Different legislators will have different areas of expertise, and so who can I trust that they have done their homework, that they've done the due diligence, they're the more the expert in this field, and I'll listen to them. People, I think, regard me that way in terms of things related to education, higher education, just because of my background, but also increasingly on the environment, because that was my assignment, and I'm, doing a lot of work in that area. But the same thing with the lobby, right? You have to learn who you can trust and who not. And that is, it's a big lesson to learn.
I was just thinking along that same line of your point is that a lot of times what I've seen is that a lot of times people who are running don't really understand what the issues are about.
Sure.
And the folks who have the issues tend not to want to share the issues. And so you're sort of stuck from the standpoint of saying, well, I'm running, I got the motivation to run, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or if not that, should I not look at my resume to see whether or not, in fact, I can identify with the position I'm running for? Yeah. But unfortunately, that's not there.
Yeah.
There's an OJT period, wouldn't you say, an on-the-job training period?
Very much so. But, I happen to be a believer in people sort of moving from experience to experience.
Okay.
I'm not a supporter of the Donald Trump model. It's probably no surprise to you, but somebody just jumping in with no experience and who hasn't gone through that process of understanding. I mean, he's a negotiator, right? But it's a very different kind of negotiation that he has done in his business life. And I would say that for me, for example, my experience when I was the president of our faculty union at Portland Community College for a number of years, what that meant was I had to deal with people, real competing interests, the different campuses, the different subject matters, full-time, part-time, and okay, how can we get people together and decide on a common agenda? And then how can I negotiate with the other side to try to do it in a way that's moving us forward as a college and not just tearing us apart? That experience, I would say, really prepared me for doing this kind of work. And so that's, if somebody's coming to me as a candidate, I'm going to want to listen to what they have to say and their positions on issues, and I want them to be, things that I support and agree with. But anybody can say anything. Yes. What really helps is just looking at their, and not their resume, but concrete examples. What have they done? How have they brought people together? How have they dealt with problems? How thick is their skin? And I think that really is important.
Well, you say again the same point that if that could be reflected in the resume, see,
right?
If you look at it, however, just like as far as your experience and background, you didn't have to worry about the first term being on-the-job training. Because most of them, the majority of them, are just kind of like, boom, the first term you're trying to figure out what's going on. You jumped right in because you were there, see?
Right.
And that's very effective.
Okay. And I will say it's actually, in a sense, easier being part of the minority party. The Republicans, when they come in, because they're not in leadership, so the responsibility isn't on them as much to deliver. It was the same thing back when the Republicans were in charge and the Democrats were in the minority. But if you're in the majority party, then that your vote is really going to make a difference, and you really have to think hard and do your homework. And there always will be some
would you
OJT.
Would you say that the issue, whether they come from R's or D, is that the issue is that what they're looking at, or do you think party has a lot to play with it?
It depends.
It depends.
It depends. Yeah, I would say that. So you have to remember that 90% at least of the bills that we pass are done bipartisan.
Okay.
Maybe not unanimous.
But it is.
But largely lots from each party coming together. It's just the sort of daily taking care of business of government. We work very productively together. But there are going to be those areas, that are just very controversial, whether you're talking about guns or you're talking about taxes or you're talking about health care or, some certainly anything related to reproductive rights, I mean, those become very polarizing because the parties are polarized. And, people, that's where things tend to be the hardest.
Okay. Another area that you were thinking that you guys were really looking into was ballot measure 11.
Right.
And maybe share with them about how it started, kind of give a little history of it, and then bring it up to date where we are today.
Right.
It is a major concern.
Yeah. So, as I told you, the session ended just a couple of weeks ago, but the work doesn't end. And so, we now move into kind of work group time where we're looking at different issues and working to prepare legislation for the next session. That's a lot of what we do now in this time. And one of them, I'll start with another one before I get into that one, and that's the reentry area.
Okay.
We have a work group that I'm chairing on reentry in employment and housing. And of course, reentry is the effort to remove barriers to people who have run afoul of the law, have been incarcerated or, arrested, have a record. And how can we, they've done their time, they are ready, they come out, they're different people, they're ready to contribute positively, but it is really hard for them to do that. They face a number of obstacles with their employment, with housing, with a number of things. And so a couple of years ago, back in it was the 2015 session, we passed something called Ban the Box. I don't know if you remember that, where traditionally you apply for a job and you're asked to check a box saying, have you ever been convicted or been incarcerated? And what we decided was that we were going to prohibit that box on employment because what happens is those people never even get called in for an interview. What we want is for them to be called in for an interview if they seem like the kind of candidate the employer wants, and then that they can explain their record and what it was that sent them there and how they're a different person today, how they're somebody worth investing in. So we did that, and it's funny, my partner in that was, I don't know if you know Senator Jackie Winters.
Oh, I know Jackie.
Yeah.
Everybody got to know Jackie.
Yeah. She's a Republican from Salem. She's actually now the minority leader in the Senate. And she and I, at the end of the day, partnered on this. And she said to me, okay, I will support this with you on one condition. And I said, okay, what's that? I was kind of nervous to hear what her condition was. And that is that we create a task force to keep working on this, because Ban the Box will help, but there are many other problems that these people are facing.
This is a start.
Yeah. And so we did that. We created this task force, and we've been working on it ever since. Last session, in 2017, we passed something that I think really has a lot of promise. It's called the Certificates of Good Standing program. So that somebody, after they have been released and they have fulfilled the conditions of their probation, they become eligible for a Certificate of Good Standing, which then shows employers, shows the world that this is somebody worth investing in. And if you as an employer hire them, you don't have to worry about the liability if something goes wrong, because some employers would be nervous about, okay, what if it comes out that I knew this person was an ex-felon and I hired them? Can I be sued for negligence as a result? And this frees them of that liability. And we hope, we've seen this happen in other states, and it has worked this way, will stimulate more hiring of formerly incarcerated.
What about recidivism? What impact? Did you see any impact from
Very
recidivism?
Very low. When you have somebody who's gone through a good reentry system, the recidivism rate is very low. I mean, what is it that drives people to recidivism? You know, most of the time they can't find a job.
That's right.
They're out on the streets.
Yeah.
You know, and so we have to remove the barriers that are keeping them from getting their driver's licenses back just because they owe court fees and fines. We need to find ways to keep their relationship with their children their families while they're inside. So one thing I'm really proud of that we passed was a Bill of Rights for the children of incarcerated parents. And that's being rolled out now. So a number of really positive things. So the work group is ongoing.
Okay.
And we have we have 4 ex-offenders who are actually as part of the work group, men and women. We have DAs, somebody from the Sheriff's Department, Department of Corrections, all these legislators, of course, from both parties, working together to try to address this problem. And I will say that almost every reentry bill that we passed last year passed unanimously, or almost unanimously. So this is not a Democrat-Republican issue at all.
Oh, yes.
People understand we have a stake.
You have to do this.
Because
major stake.
People, if they're going to come out, and we know they will at some point, we don't want them going back in.
I was wondering, spend a couple more minutes on the training within those facilities. You know, and that's a very major piece.
It is.
Are you getting more people to participate?
Yes, and you should bring me back sometime.
Yeah, we
can talk about this more.
We got about 5 more minutes.
Yeah. So the other work group that we're just starting now has to do with juvenile justice.
Okay.
And especially with respect to Measure 11.
Right.
You know, Measure 11 was something that was passed back in the 90s. It was tough on crime time. Actually, there was more crime at that time.
At the time, there was, there was
crime,
that spike.
Crime has come way down since then. A lot of it is just demographic. It's a function of the times. But we took all discretion out of the hands of judges, and we had these mandatory sentences where, you know, you have young people who do stupid things, and they enter the system, and they're in the Oregon Youth Authority where they get really great programming, and they become different people. You know, the sort of the stresses that were in their lives, go away, and they get on top of, if they had an addiction, they get on top of that. They get treated with respect, and they learn how to treat other people with respect. And respect doesn't mean making somebody afraid of you, right? It's, really valuing them. So they have this great programming. But then, because we have these overlong sentences, they age out of the youth authority, and they then have to go to prison, where all of the benefits of everything that they had learned, I mean, they're ready to come back, but they've got to go back.
They got to go back in.
And so, we're looking at, are there some changes that we can make? Because Measure 11 was a ballot measure voted on by the people, we as a legislature can't really change it substantively if we don't have a 2/3 vote in the legislature.
That's
2/3 is a really high bar.
That was very high.
And so, we're looking at, okay, are there some things that we can all agree on that make good common sense? We're hoping that we're going to get to something over the next year.
Okay. Well, look, you're going to have to come back on it.
Yeah.
Seriously, you got to come back.
Yeah, we haven't really even talked about guns yet. No. I was part of the march. Yes.
Were you? Okay.
It was great. I mean, again, these young people, I think they're making a real difference.
Okay.
And I think, over the last
Let's take
year,
5 more minutes. I think they'll respect it, because they want to hear that anyway. They want to hear that gun search in the march. What did you think about that? Real quick, like.
I was really impressed.
Were you?
I have to say. What was interesting was there was a parade of speakers, and the oldest was a senior in high school.
Wow.
I mean, traditionally what happens...
Here in Oregon?
Here in Portland.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of people. There were 13,000 people on the march.
Okay.
And then they got to Pioneer Courthouse Square, and these kids were speaking, and it was really inspiring. I mean, inspiring, but also, I'll say, as a legislator, intimidating, because they were tough.
Yeah, they were tough.
They said, we feel like our parents' generation has let us down by not getting on top of this problem.
Well, they have.
Yeah, we have. I mean,
Real.
I will say I'm proud of some of the things that we've done here in Oregon. I think we're in the forefront.
Right.
But this is still, it's a huge problem.
It's tough.
And we actually, a few of us legislators, I and Lou Frederick and Jennifer Williamson, met with some of these organizers the day before. We had a kind of round table. And, they were really tough with us, which is good.
Okay.
Now, the real challenge is how to keep this energy level and this focus and this activism going, because that's what it's going to take.
In fact, I think, and only you said the round table, let's maybe look at that, because your district abuts his anyway, Lou Frederick, right?
Sure, oh yeah.
And we might be able to put that.
And Lou is part of by the way, the reentry task force.
He's part of it?
Yeah, he's
so
with it on
we really need to talk about that part, because there were some things that were happening in our school, here at Portland Public Schools, and we talked a little bit about that, that we can maybe start, because this is the focal point in this particular district as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? So look, Mike, this has been great.
All right, Bruce.
This is
really
good.
enjoyed it.
Well, now we're here now.
Except that now I'm suckered into coming back.
Well, you got I'll come up with a day. We're gonna come up with a date. Well, you got. Let's see. You got 2 years to do, and then you're gonna rerun. You're gonna run again, and then you got another 4.
We'll see. I got a family, but we'll
see. I heard that. Okay, fine.
All right, Bruce.
Thanks again, buddy. Really appreciate it. We're gonna take a short break, folks, and we're gonna have our another guest. Okay.
You are watching Oregon Voters Digest. This program can be seen again on these channels on these dates and times. Tell a friend.
We are back, folks. Again, I'm Bruce Broussard, your host here at the Oregon Voters Digest. This is election time. This is getting leadership. And right up front, I've got two young people, if you will, that's going to be my guests at this point in time. Folks that have reached out. I've reached out and said, okay, fine, come on the Oregon Voters Digest. I've challenged them and whatever. And some folks turn up and some folks don't. But I've got two exciting guests with me today. And we've got we're talking about really an area, both city of Portland and the county, okay? Because when you think about the county and the city of Portland, you got all of the city of Portland in about 2 different counties, but the bottom line is that they interact with one another. One because District 2, for that matter, tend to identify the county identify with poor people, the little folks, and then on the city side, it's these high-risers, that we're seeing around here. All these high-rises, if you will. But it's all good. So we're fortunate to have 2 individuals that represent both areas. We got county. As far as the county is concerned, we got Bora Harris.
Yes.
Who's running for county chair. Okay. I mean, what else can you think about? And far as having the leading person here. running for county chair. And you never know what might happen to the other. There's some other competition there, but Deborah came up. She called up. She said, "Hey, look, I'd like to be on the show," and everybody's invited for that matter. But she's here with us. Thanks very much for being here with us.
Thank you for allowing me, and
All right.
I am on the journey.
You on that journey? Yes,
The
you
journey.
are. Well, you heard
County chair.
Michael talk about the whole piece like that.
Yes.
You got a sort of an intro in terms of what's expected, right? Of you? No problem. Piece of cake.
Yeah, it's real easy. It's ridiculously easy.
And then we got Felicia Williams. Felicia is running for city council. She's running for a seat there in city council. A little crowded race aspect of it, but I'm sort of excited about the fact that the 5 folks that I saw yesterday were very exciting. And Felicia reached out. She called me up, said, "Hey, Bruce, I'd like to come on the show and let the people know who I am, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And I'm excited about that. In fact, the two of you, like I said, the two of you reached out. That's why you're sitting here.
Yeah, well, thanks
Okay?
for the invitation.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you,
awesome.
thank you.
Happy to be here.
And I had the opportunity to get some feel for both of you in several occasions aspect of it, and I'm really excited about the fact that the leadership's going to be in good hand. Okay, you understand what I'm saying?
Is. It will. Yes.
It will definitely do that. Then. So what we'll do, we'll just kind of like give a little brief of yourself, and because you are running for office, because you'll be back here. By the way, we got some time. You know what I'm saying? We got between now and the 14th. Better yet, that especially that backup week when you go back that back week right before they get that ballot.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to really come back and put your head back up in here again.
Yeah.
Before that, right?
Get everybody's attention.
Exactly. So Deborah, why don't you just give us a little brief why you're running, and what specific area that you think you're going to be focusing in as
Okay.
a county chair.
Again, let me restate. My name is Bora Harris, and I'm on the journey for the position of Multnomah County Chair. Well prepared for that journey. My theme pretty much is working together to make a difference, because I chose to get in the race because I want to make a difference, and I want to make sure that in that difference I'm including the residents, the people, the voices of the people. I'm speaking on their behalf. Some of my focuses are there need to be changes. Well, first of all, I look at some immediate issues that I think need to take place. And one being, my philosophy is a person who is in a leadership role needs to be a role model and needs to stand firm and have that respect of the people. When you respect someone and you respect those people you're serving, then you are initially taking on the leadership and everything else follows. One of my concerns is that the current chair to have the audacity to use the term address B to an individual. Well, I won't say an individual, to a woman is absurd. It's uncalled for. It is not okay. And still be comfortable to remain in that position. I'm not saying this is nothing that took place maybe at an event or a family affair, but on public time, at a public meeting, to use the comment and to say it. Sure, we say things sometimes we don't mean, but when you're a public official representing others, then you know, if you are a true leader, you know how to avoid that. You know, this isn't, well, I won't go there. You know, this isn't the leader of, you know, who stands in America. I mean, this is Oregon, so you have to respect that. And when we know that our part in the play or the chapter's over, then we need to let it go. Secondly, I'm in this race because our current leader has acknowledged in a manner that she was to hold her accountable, because there has been systemic racism within the county. And when you are aware, well, institutional, let me rephrase it, institutional systemic racism. And when you are, I would say, the leader of an organization or whatever entity it is, when you are aware that something is going on and you don't take steps immediately to remedy those issues or to find ways and work with the people, so let's take care of the issue because I recognize them. You don't wait until the covers are lifted or the roof over your house is lifted, and when everybody begins to see what's going on, to say, hold me accountable. If you're aware of these issues all alone, then being responsible, you would already address it. You don't wait for it to happen.
Okay.
And I'm going to briefly cover some other areas that my focus is.
And you'll be coming back. I'll put some more stuff in there with it.
Okay.
Just give me another one. Give me another one area.
Well, the other areas is that what I want to do is bring back the ombudsman and also resurrect the merit system. There are ways the ombudsman would have is a resource that would represent the union workers, and the merit system is a resource where the non-union workers would have. Because right now there's no structure in place if a person is fired for them to have a resource to go to.
Okay.
So that would give them avenues where there isn't right now. And the merit system, well, we give credit to former Chair Gladys McCoy for that.
Right.
And it needs to be resurrected. And being in that position, it should never have phased out because it was very effective.
Okay. Well, in all due respect, that is really costing us quite a bit of money because people are suing this, that, and the other, and we have to address this issue to get down. We're talking about a $2 billion budget at the county. Has many, many, many issues, and as you know, I'm running also too, and two is, that is it. It has the largest population of issues right within there, and then naturally it's all of Portland too, right within District Number 2, and so we really don't have the time to spend more on this other area, and it's costing us quite a bit of money.
Listen, can I say this real quick?
Real quick, right?
Especially over the years, we've been seeing people, workers falling off the wall, repetitively falling off the wall, and we know what's happening.
Yeah.
But when we choose not to address it, then that's the real problem.
Right. No, we have to address it now.
Yes.
That's why I appreciate the fact that you're on and you're willing to take that. That has to be stamped out now so we can get down to the business. And
Exactly.
that's where Felicia, that's why I did her first, because she's a chair, because Felicia, in all due respect, the county, the city works with the county and vice versa. Yeah. They got the sheriff department there. You got they basically are they are the ones who basically, they house, if you will.
They do.
They house the what was it, criminals or the whatever, but the bottom line is that they're the jailers. They're the jailers for our area. We got Portland Police on her end, and she's got her problems with reference to the Portland Police aspect of it, just picking up the troops.
Yes.
That's another deal. So we're going to bring Felicia in now. Felicia, well, what do you think? I want you to introduce yourself. And
I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself.
Yes,
I have kind of
please.
a strange background.
Sure,
so,
no problem.
I grew up in South Dakota. I have a very large family. I've got 9 brothers and 5 sisters. Vietnam veteran. You were in the Marine Corps, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have 2 brothers that were in the Marine Corps, 2 brothers in the Army, and a brother in the Navy. But it was kind of interesting coming from a very large family like that, because the only thing my parents were rich with was books and children. Lots of children. So,
that's quite a combination.
yeah, it was quite a combination.
Yes.
So there are a lot of things that the social safety net was something that I could really relate to. Because when I was a kid, we were on the free lunch program until I got to high school, because I'm number 10 out of 15.
Wow.
So by the time I got to high school, there were fewer of us around, so it was reduced price lunches. But it was kind of interesting because I talked to other people who came from similar backgrounds to mine, and talk about government cheese. I remember what it tastes like. I remember the mixed up milk with the sludge on the bottom. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with that. And then the peanut butter that wouldn't spread. But it was interesting because I was talking to my partner, and when he was a kid, they also were getting the government cheese. And apparently there was something called the government nacho cheese. I didn't know that there was such a thing. I guess maybe it's an Astoria, Oregon thing. I'm not really sure. But after I graduated from high school, I had a grand total of 1 option available to me to get out of South Dakota, and that was to join the military. So I did. I joined the Air Force. I spent 5 years on active duty. I was command and control, worked in a command post. And so anytime anything bad happened, we were the ones who got called. So plane crashes.
That was the MOS.
Yeah, command and control. So, plane crashes, gas leaks, building explosions, things like that. So our job was to get it under control as quickly as possible. It's managing chaos. After I got out of the military, I moved to Oregon, went to school at the University of Portland, went to graduate school at Portland State, and I taught history at both Portland State and the University of Portland. Also, am a published historian, but history and teaching is a labor of love.
Yeah.
And so now I work in biotech.
Ah, okay.
So I do a lot of audits and compliance. So it's kind of fun.
I like that. I like that already.
Yeah, and so I've been involved as a neighborhood volunteer for the better part of a decade. And so I deal with a lot of the outcomes of city policies. So when they come up with an idea, and it's not particularly a good one, we get hit with the ramifications right away. So my neighborhood is one where we have approximately 87% of the people that live there are renters. And we also have a lot of high density public housing. So we see a lot of the issues that come in and around public housing, like when you have people living in home forward properties and they're paying over half of their total income of Social Security disability, over half of their income is going to rent for public housing. So it's pretty astonishing. And then on the other hand, you've got the senior housing, that's HUD, Section 8 housing. And that one's more desirable. Everybody's trying to get into it. That's the waiting lists are all closed. But that's capped at 30% of their income. So you see this real disparity in my neighborhood between types of housing availability and the impacts of that when people lose their housing. We lost 500 units of deeply affordable housing to condo conversions, and they haven't been replaced.
What district was that, 2 or 3?
That's citywide. So actually,
2 or 3.
that's Sharon Myron's district.
Okay.
So yeah, she just got elected to that one 2 years ago.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't understand just how much high density poverty there is in the central city.
Well, that's why it's so good to have 4 different districts.
Yeah.
So in essence, you got a chair in each one of those districts. Then you've got a super chair
Yes.
in many ways. But again, that was one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on, because of your background aspect of it, because that is that mix, you know, and you have to work very closely with the county, and the county has to work
Yes.
very close with the city, and a lot of times you have to communicate with someone
Yes.
at the county, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah. I'm on a program right now. It's called Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion.
Okay.
And that one is a joint city-county program with a lot of emphasis on the nonprofits. And what we do is we try to, the whole goal of the program is to reduce racial disparities in possession of controlled substance, right?
Okay.
So, but the target audience are the people who are using drugs in the pedestrian zone. So it's everything within inside the 405 loop. So downtown, Old Town, Chinatown, and Lloyd District. And so, especially in Old Town, Chinatown, you see a lot of people on the streets shooting up in doorways, and this creates a lot of problems. But this is where it gets kind of interesting, is the people that were our clients, we have about 70 of them right now, and we got the first intake form back from them, self-identified needs, right? And so we're talking about hardcore homeless people who have been on the street for a decade or longer. And what we noticed is the number one requested need was medical care, right? Number 2 was shelter, closely followed by addiction treatment, and then after that, mental health treatment. So 3 of the top 4 needs were public health related. And so the city has a stake in it. While the county does all of the public health element, the city has a vested interest in making sure this works. And so I keep thinking, with all that 5% budget cuts that are coming from the city, where we're cutting our core functions, that 5% budget cut, maybe we should be allocating it towards making sure public health is taken care of instead of just focusing on shelter, shelter, shelter. Because if we don't break that underlying cycle, you know, we're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and that's the definition of insanity.
See, now, the interesting point about, and that's the reason why I have the 2 of you here today, is because the county is districtized, so to speak. The city is not.
The city needs to be.
And they need to be.
The city needs
because
to be.
this way you know exactly who one has to deal with, and they will be accountable, if you will.
Yeah.
And so as a result, it's sort of like a disorganized kind of a situation, and everybody's doing it, and then all of a sudden, then the mayor just has to do the whole thing, so to speak.
Yeah.
And whatever he wants to, if anything I don't like, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, he's kind of it's a messy system.
But it's unfortunate it's that way. And so I wanted to make sure I brought that point up, because you can be an asset, but at the same time, there might be areas, if you had another person in another district, you see,
Absolutely.
they would be depending upon the environment of that particular area.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? And we need to do that. So now the only thing you have now is the fact that the county is districtized, then all of a sudden, hopefully that there'll be a person that will react to that particular district, depending upon where you live. That's why I asked you where you lived. And if you were in that district, it looked like it would be a natural kind of a deal for you to work in that particular area. Got me?
Consensus building. That's the only way that you get anything done.
Yes.
Consensus building.
But what other areas do we think that that you think that is kind of like major in our area? It's this large county city area.
Well, let me just touch bases on this. In 2016, when I ran for mayor, one of my focuses was single-member districts. Now, the county is divided into districts. Having single-member districts would be exactly what the city would need.
Yes.
But I'm not going to focus on the city because I'm looking at county right now. Single-member district, and then you can focus on each of those districts. Someone is designated for each district. That way, it isn't one everything is bulged into one.
Right,
And
right.
people within the communities within each of the districts
Right.
would have a go-to.
Right, right.
And each district has different issues.
They
We
do.
cannot assume that if there's a cat in the tree, maybe one district, they're quarreling a lot, the communities, there's a cat in the tree. The other issue may be gang related, a lot of activities. So each is unique in its own way, and each needs to be addressed separately.
Right,
so
right.
so much for the city.
Right, right, right.
When I mentioned my immediate areas, when we spoke earlier, those were the immediate. My driven solution focus, where the community and I would get together, we would lend an ear and we discuss the solution driven. Those would be the elderly, their quality of life. The other would be our children, our present, our future. My third solution driven is affordable housing, and not just affordable housing, but affordable housing in places where everybody knows your name. And the other would be homeless, not just a place to live, but a livable place, making sure that when you're housed, even with affordable housing and the homeless, the places you're in meet the city or the county standards, not just in a place. And it doesn't meet the standards as if you were a homeowner buying a place, not just throwing it together.
Well, the uniqueness about your end there with being chair,
Yes.
you know, you've got 4 different districts, and it varies from district to district as to which is more priority-wise. They have to prioritize those efforts that you're talking about.
Yes.
That's a toughie. In many ways, that's a toughie because you're overseeing. Then on the other hand, you've got a mayor, if you will, that you're going to be having to work with very closely, who is kind of like not in that same vein, if you will. And so that's going to be pretty. It's going to be pretty tricky, if you will, to put that piece together. But it can be done.
It can.
Just
It can be
just
done.
a good
It can be
organized aspect of it. So let's say the things that sort of sticks on the wall right now at this point right now is homelessness.
Homelessness is
You know,
huge.
folks are saying,
Yeah.
what can we do about homelessness? Give me your thoughts about homelessness. Who wants to start?
Yeah. So I live in the neighborhood that has always
Okay.
had homelessness. We've always had shelters. So this is something that we know.
Right.
And so even on my board, I've got 2 board members who are active in homeless services. So, you know, we have a pretty nuanced understanding of how this works. And when Mayor Hales suspended the camping ordinance, suddenly that became a citywide issue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that spread
Right,
everywhere.
right.
But, you know, I keep looking at this and saying, well, there are best practices that we can look at. And sometimes, unfortunately, those best practices don't take root until a crisis happens. So San Diego, I'm going to point out San Diego, they had this massive hepatitis A outbreak, and 500 people were sickened, and 25 died last summer. And because of that, San Diego moved to a campus model. And so this way, if people need services, need someplace to go, they go to the campus model. In Portland, what we did in the late 1990s is we actually revolutionized the homeless youth continuum. And the way that the city did it, so it was a bunch of the nonprofits, the business community, the city and the county worked together to create a program where what they did is they said, okay, you've got 2 goals, right? The first one is rapid rehousing or family reunification. And so in the mid-90s, you had thousands of homeless street youth. This is people under age of 18.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was a big.
Yeah, it was a huge deal.
A big youth thing. Yes.
Yeah, and so when they did that, what they did is they limited the number of social service providers in the system and made a single point of entry. And then they required all of the social service providers to share information. So when Johnny checked in at Outside In, that was recorded in the system. So then when Johnny checked in at Naya, they had the information. So Johnny likes basketball, Johnny got this kind of service there. And so it created a complete social safety net for Johnny.
Okay.
It worked.
Okay.
By 2007, what Portland had done with the youth continuum was a national model. And we've more or less ended youth homelessness in Portland
Yep.
just by making sure that we don't have an inefficient system. It's like efficient, effective use of resources, sharing it, creating a complete social safety network. So I was thinking with homelessness, campus model and doing the youth continuum, doing what we know works.
Okay. And they are sharing that in the campaign.
Yes.
You're sharing that?
Yes, trying to.
We've got about 2.5 minutes left right now. So why don't you just kind of include a little quick, you're going to be back anyway.
Yes.
Just a little quickie highlight something on homelessness.
On the
Real
homelessness.
quick, like for about a minute, and do your close too at the same time.
Okay,
And you do the
okay.
same- get
Well,
real close.
on the homelessness, what my thoughts were to do an analysis of where the homeless are. We know, we put cameras here, put cameras there, but actually have an analysis done where our homeless are. We know it's in the city of Portland, but specific areas. And also look at other models. That's what I definitely would love to do. States that have progressed very well in providing the homeless situation. Look at those models and see what we can pull from those models, and then we need to be proactive. Oftentimes what we do is when it gets real cold or when something happens, we rush to try to take care of the problem. But we need to be proactive before it begins.
Okay, good.
And just to give a snapshot, I'm not really focusing on my skills and ability. I have received my master's from Portland State University, my bachelor's from the University of Arkansas. I managed businesses, been a servitude leadership in businesses for over 35 years. So I have the background. I have the skills and knowledge.
Check out your website, right?
What I'm focusing
What's your
now is
website?
this.
What's your website?
My website is under reconstruction right now.
Okay,
But you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook.
Sounds good. Because in your position, you'll be able to ask the commissioners, each of the commissioners, to give you a plan.
Yes.
Right?
What are you going to contribute? Yes.
You're in good shape.
Yes.
Okay, how about you, Felicia?
Well, I'm
Give
running
your
for
website
office.
real quick, yes.
Yeah, my website is FeliciaForPortland.com.
Okay.
And that's spelled FOR, not the letter, number
right.
4. And I am also on Facebook.
Okay.
And that's a pretty exciting
Do
way
you
to
guys
find
have
out.
phone number? What about a phone number?
No, I don't have any phone numbers.
Okay,
503
good.
936 8020.
Okay. Like I said, you can get in touch with these two young ladies. I mean, make sure you do that. It's very important. I'm going to have you guys on again, in all due
Great.
respect, because the more you get the FaceTime, that's what it's all about.
That's what
Yes.
it
Because
is.
I know you got a lot of money, right?
Yeah, it's all about the military. You,
I
know, you
heard
get
that, buddy.
FaceTime. Get
That's
FaceTime.
right. Get that FaceTime. Everything. You know, it's a pleasure. It's going to be a pleasure, and I'm sure you're out there knocking on doors, meeting people.
Yes,
and
doing a
everything.
lot of that.
And that's going to be. In fact, I think I'm going to do the show next week on Sunday. We're not going to do Sunday for Oregon Voters Digest, but we will be doing something over here with this other group. If you want to, you can. It's an hour show, so come on by.
Okay, great.
Okay, come on by. We'll do it again.
Excellent.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks,
Okay,
Reese.
folks. Hey, there's it. That's the show for today. Take care. I'll see you next week. In fact, no, Matt Hennessy is going to be on next week. The Oregon Voters Digest crew's going to be off, but I will be around on Poor Folks. I guess there's another show. That's from 3 to 4. Okay, Channel 11. See you then. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hey folks, I'm Bruce Broussard, and as you might know, I'm running to be your next county commissioner. But I will continue to host our Oregon Voters Digest and will likely share my views on important issues here. And since this is going to be a very important election year for everyone, I'm opening this platform for other political candidates to share their views too. So, if whether you're also running for Multnomah County Commissioner or if you are going to be on the ballot in any other position in our viewing area, you are welcome to come on this show and tell us what you are all about. This is an open invitation to anyone running for any office in the Portland area. We broadcast our show live every Sunday afternoon here in Northeast Portland and would love to share the stage with you. If you're interested, send us an email at ovdguests@gmail.com. The email should be displayed on your screen now. So, come on down, write me an email, and tell me who you are, what position you're running for, and maybe a little about yourself. Again, our email is ovdguests@gmail.com. Even if you're not running for office, be sure to stay tuned over the next several months. You're going to want to know how your candidates stand on the issues and how they plan to represent you. Have a great week, folks. Everybody, I love you. Take care.